What if I told you that everything you believed about survival in the far north is just the tip of the iceberg? In a place where nature itself has declared war on humanity and trees simply refuse to grow, people have managed to build an entire civilization out of pure ice. Have you ever wondered how to avoid turning into an ice statue overnight when it's minus 50 degrees outside? Today we'll dive into a world where the impossibility of geography has clashed with remarkable human ingenuity. We'll explore unique, almost magical methods of retaining heat that seem like madness to modern people. The great Cree people found ways to literally outsmart the Arctic cold, turning deadly snow into their primary building material. But pay close attention. Watch this video all the way to the end, because in the finale we'll reveal the engineering secret that saved thousands of lives. You'll learn how a clever ventilation system in snow dwellings solved a deadly problem, how not to suffocate from carbon dioxide in a completely enclosed space. This isn't just a story, it's a masterclass in survival at the limits of what's possible. Ready to see the Arctic through the eyes of those who tame the frost? Let's begin. What if everything you were taught about a sedentary lifestyle is outdated? The Cree people developed a unique strategy of constant movement across the icy expanses of the subarctic. They did not attempt to build permanent fortresses to protect themselves from the harsh winds. Instead, they followed temperature changes, moving from one climate zone to another. Their dwellings were always temporary, and their ability to quickly change locations became their primary resource. The strategy involved finding places where the temperature was at least 5 degrees higher than the surrounding environment. A difference of just a few degrees in conditions of extreme cold was crucial for conserving energy. Valleys hidden behind high hills provided a natural barrier against the biting northern winds. The Cree carefully studied the terrain, identifying low-lying areas where the frosty air stagnated and avoiding them. They chose south-facing slopes that were warmed by the meager winter sun. The camp was moved along precisely calibrated routes laid out by generations of ancestors. The path wound through dense thickets of shrubs, which reduced the wind speed at ground level. Deep snow served as a kind of blanket for the ground, preventing it from freezing solid. People moved on wide snowshoes woven from flexible branches and sturdy straps. This distributed a person's weight, preventing them from sinking into the loose snowdrifts. Each leg of the journey took just enough time to avoid exhausting their strength. Stops were planned in places with access to unfrozen underground springs or clean layers of snow. The Cree did not carry heavy building materials or bulky furniture. All their belongings were placed on light sleds that glided over the icy crust. The wooden frames of old dwellings were often left in place for use the following season. The speed of setting up camp had been perfected through long practice. Every member of the community knew exactly what their task was and carried it out without unnecessary discussion. The snow around the chosen site was quickly packed down into a solid platform. A protective rampart was formed from packed snow, which provided additional protection from drafts. Light poles brought along on sleds were set up on the prepared foundation. The fire was kept burning continuously, carried from place to place in special clay bowls. These bowls retained the heat of the coals for a long time, preventing them from going out in the biting wind. Upon arrival at a new location, these coals instantly ignited the prepared dry tinder. A supply of tinder was always kept warm under their clothing to ensure it remained completely dry. The ability to quickly start a fire guaranteed that they could stay warm after an exhausting trek in the freezing cold. Winter routes crossed summer trails, forming a complex navigation network. The choice of direction was always dictated by current weather conditions and the forecast for the coming days. Signs of an approaching storm, such as a halo around the sun, forced them to immediately seek deep shelter. On sunny days, the group moved faster, making the most of daylight hours. Traveling at night was out of the question due to the sharp drop in temperature and the risk of getting lost in the dark. Constantly changing campsites prevented the cold from penetrating deep into the ground beneath the camp. The earth beneath their shelter warmed up slightly, but after a few days it began to radiate an icy chill back up. It was at this very moment that the decision was made to move to a new, unfrozen location. In this way, people were literally fleeing the piercing cold rising from beneath the ground. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this survival tactic. Please share your views in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Are you ready to learn the truth about Arctic builders? In conditions where temperatures dropped to -50 degrees, traditional building materials became unavailable. The ground was as hard as granite, and searching for suitable wood took too much time. The Cree turned their attention to the most abundant resource in the northern latitudes, snow compacted by the winds. From this cold material, they began to build warm shelters that functioned according to the laws of physics. Snow proved to be an ideal insulator thanks to millions of microscopic air bubbles trapped between the crystals. Selecting the right snow for construction was a crucial step requiring vast experience. Soft, fluffy snow was unsuitable, as it lacked the necessary structural density. Snow that was too old and icy was brittle and would crack when they tried to cut blocks from it. The ideal building material formed after heavy snowstorms, when the wind packed the drifts tightly. People tested its quality by driving long wooden probes into it to determine the uniformity of the snow mass. The blocks were cut using specially shaped bone or wooden knives. The blocks were wedge-shaped, allowing them to fit tightly together. A standard block was about 1 meter long and half a meter high. This provided an optimal balance between the weight of the element and the speed of wall construction. The craftsmen cut the blocks directly from the snowdrift that was to become the floor of the future shelter. The entrance to the dwelling was designed as a long, narrow tunnel located below floor level. This configuration created a sort of siphon that blocked the entry of heavy, cold air inside. The tunnel had a curved shape that dampened the gusts of strong wind blowing from outside. Inside the passageway, small niches were built for storing tools and frozen provisions. The entrance was sealed with a thick piece of tanned leather, further insulated with dry grass. A window in a snow house was a rarity, but sometimes one was made from a piece of clear freshwater ice. The ice slab was carefully frozen into the wall at an adult's eye level. It let in enough daylight, saving fuel for lighting the dwelling. On sunny days, the ice acted as a lens, slightly warming the interior. At night, such a window was tightly covered with thick leather to prevent heat loss. The size of the snow house strictly corresponded to the number of people who were to live in it. It was impossible to heat too large a space with the warmth of human bodies in a small hearth. A space that was too small caused discomfort and posed a risk of carbon monoxide buildup. The optimal diameter was about 3 meters, which allowed a small group to fit comfortably. It took experienced builders no more than 2 hours to construct such a shelter. Over time, the interior walls of the shelter became covered with a thin layer of ice. This occurred due to the surface constantly melting from the heat of the fire and then refreezing. The icy crust significantly strengthened the dome, making it capable of supporting the weight of several people. It also served as an excellent screen, reflecting radiant heat from the fire back into the center of the room. In this way, the snow shelter gradually turned into a perfect thermos. Snow architecture was not merely a way to shelter from the wind, but a sophisticated engineering system. The Cree utilized the physical properties of frozen water to create a comfortable environment. Without a single piece of wood or a gram of clay, they erected sturdy and warm walls. I wonder how such construction methods could be applied in modern polar expeditions. In the next chapter, you'll learn how they solved the critical problem of ventilation within a sealed ice shell. I discovered this quite by accident while studying archival records of winter camps. The main hidden danger inside the snow house was not the cold, but suffocation. Tightly fitted ice blocks created a completely airtight space that did not allow oxygen to pass through. A burning fire and people's breathing rapidly consumed the precious air, releasing carbon dioxide. The accumulation of carbon dioxide could lead to the imperceptible poisoning of everyone inside while they slept. To prevent this threat, the Indians developed a complex and fail-safe ventilation system. A small ventilation hole of a strictly defined size was cut at the very top of the dome. Through this opening, light, heated carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide escaped unimpeded. At the same time, the draft drew out excess moisture, preventing the air inside from becoming too damp. The size of the opening was constantly adjusted using a special snowball, depending on the wind strength. Fresh air was supplied through a cold intake tunnel located below floor level. The heavy frosty air slowly flowed into the tunnel, but could not rise to the elevated living area. Instead, it gradually mixed with the warmer air near the floor, gradually heating up. This slow circulation created constant air exchange without sudden drafts or cooling of the room. The physics of these processes worked to their advantage, ensuring safe breathing for the entire group. On windless nights, the draft would weaken, and the ventilation opening had to be widened. A designated person monitored the airflow, periodically checking the size of the opening with a long stick. If smoke from the hearth began to accumulate under the vaulted ceiling, this served as a signal to take immediate action. An opening that was too large led to rapid heat loss, requiring a delicate balance. This art of controlling air currents was passed down from elders to younger members as essential knowledge. During heavy blizzards, there was a risk of snow blowing into the upper ventilation opening. To protect against this, a small snow canopy was constructed, facing against the direction of the wind. The canopy deflected the icy currents, creating an area of low pressure above the opening. This negative pressure further drew stagnant air out of the dwelling, increasing the draft. Sophisticated aerodynamic solutions were implemented, using ordinary snow in just a few minutes. The air quality inside was regularly checked by the color of the flame in the hearth. A dim yellow flame indicated a lack of oxygen and high carbon dioxide levels. A bright, steady burn indicated that the ventilation system was working properly and the atmosphere was safe. In the event of smoke, the entrance canopy was immediately opened slightly to create a strong draft. After ventilation, the microclimate was restored within a few minutes thanks to the heated ice walls. This ventilation system demonstrates a deep understanding of the laws of convection and the properties of gases. Without any instruments, the Cree people created a safe environment under the harshest climatic conditions. The snow house breathed along with its inhabitants, providing them with warmth and oxygen. A design error in the openings could have led to fatal consequences on the very first night. Unique engineering knowledge made it possible to create a fully autonomous life support system. Innovative approaches to air circulation inside the ice dome are striking in their simplicity and effectiveness. The use of elevation differences and the properties of snow formed a sustainable model for heat retention. This ancient knowledge allowed people to settle in areas that seemed uninhabitable without modern technology. The ingenuity of the Cree people deserves deep respect and thorough study. If you enjoyed this chapter, please like this video. The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about. Snow was not the only building material in the north. During periods when the snow cover was not thick enough, the Cree utilized the energy of the earth itself. They built peat semi-dugouts, extending a meter deep into the unfrozen ground. These dwellings served as reliable shelters capable of withstanding the harshest autumn storms. Peat acted as an excellent insulator, retaining the heat from the hearth inside the dwelling during long nights. Construction began with choosing the right spot on the slope of a small hill. The hill provided natural drainage, diverting meltwater and groundwater away from the future dwelling. People looked for areas with soft, easily dug soil, rich in peat deposits. The site had to be sheltered from prevailing winds by high riverbanks or folds in the terrain. Orienting the entrance strictly south allowed for maximum use of the scarce solar heat. The pit was dug by hand using pointed sticks and wide-boned shovels. The soil was removed to the surface and carefully piled along the perimeter of the future structure. The pit was usually about a meter deep, which allowed for the use of geothermal heat from the soil. At this depth, the ground temperature remained stable, never dropping to extreme sub-zero levels. The excavated soil formed a dense earthen embankment, serving as the foundation for the future walls. A dense layer of sod and peat blocks was laid over the wooden frame. The blocks were cut from nearby marshes and laid with the grass side down for better adhesion between layers. The root system in the sod acted as reinforcement, binding the pieces together. The peat was laid in several layers, overlapping the joints of the previous row to prevent drafts. This material had a porous structure, making it an ideal natural insulator for the walls. The earthen roof blended seamlessly into the surrounding landscape, making the house virtually invisible from a distance. In winter, a thick layer of snow settled on this structure, adding another layer of thermal insulation. The result was a multi-layered structure of earth, peat, snow, and enclosed air pockets. Inside such a shelter, the temperature was easily maintained at 15 degrees Celsius. The difference from the outside temperature could reach a staggering 60 degrees Celsius. The entrance to the semi-dugout was designed as a short covered corridor. This corridor served the same barrier function as in snow dwellings, cutting off the cold air. The doorway was closed with a heavy leather curtain, the edges of which fit tightly against the doorposts. Outer clothing and wet shoes were left inside the corridor so as not to bring dampness into the living area. The corridor also served as additional protection from the incessant noise of the blizzard howling outside. The smoke vent was located in the center of the dome, directly above the stone hearth. It was wide enough for smoke to escape freely, but was protected from precipitation. During heavy rain or snowfall, the opening was covered with a flat stone or a large piece of bark. Air circulation in the semi-dugout was less intense than in a sealed snow dome. Therefore, maintaining proper wood burning without producing acrid smoke required special skill from the inhabitants. Peat's semi-dugouts were an excellent example of adaptation to the harsh conditions of the subarctic. Utilizing the Earth's energy allowed for the conservation of precious fuel and energy for continuous heating. Such shelters served as a reliable base throughout the many months of the cold winter. How difficult do you think it was to dig a deep pit without iron tools? In the next chapter, you'll learn how peat walls saved people during the harshest nighttime frosts. A very special, stable microclimate formed inside the peat shelter. The thick earthen walls acted as a huge heat accumulator, absorbing heat from the central hearth. During the day when the fire was burning, the peat and stones slowly absorbed radiant heat. At night, when the fire died down, the stored energy was gradually radiated back into the room. This process smoothed out sharp temperature fluctuations, making the night's rest safe and as comfortable as possible. Dry peat has extremely low thermal conductivity due to its abundance of organic fibers. It prevents internal heat from escaping quickly into the frozen environment. A layer of peat 30 centimeters thick was equivalent to a meter-thick brick wall. An earthen embankment at the base of the house further blocked the movement of cold drafts across the floor. People were inside a sort of thermos, reliably protected on all sides from the Arctic cold. The humidity level in the semi-dugout played a critical role in heat retention. Dry peat retained moisture well, preventing it from condensing on the walls in large droplets. Moisture exhaled during breathing was slowly absorbed into the organic material of the vault. Excess moisture escaped through the smoke vent along with the rising warm air current. Maintaining optimal humidity prevented mold growth and kept all belongings completely dry. The interior space was arranged with maximum efficiency for heat conservation. Sleeping areas were raised above the earthen floor on sturdy platforms made of thick branches. A thick layer of dry moss was laid beneath the platforms, insulating the sleepers' bodies from the cold ground. Everyone positioned themselves with their feet toward the central hearth to stay as warm as possible. The close packing of people within a small space allowed for the efficient use of their own body heat. Lighting in the semi-dugout during the long polar nights was provided by small stone lamps. These lamps were made from flat stones with a hollow into which animal fat was poured. Twisted moss or dry down collected in the summer from the endless marshes served as the wick. Such lamps gave off a steady, dim light and provided additional heat without acrid smoke. Several lamps placed around the edges of the dwelling created a stable and warm atmosphere inside the house. During severe frosts, the outer walls of the semi-dugout were additionally covered with a thick layer of snow. The snow filled in all the unevenness of the peat walls, completely blocking even the slightest cold bridges. This procedure was carried out after every heavy snowstorm to restore the integrity of the protective barrier. The combination of compact earth, organic matter, and snow created an impenetrable barrier against even the strongest winds. The temperature inside remained stable even as the outdoor thermometer dropped to extreme lows. Geothermal heat from the unfrozen bottom of the pit served as a base heating source. At a depth of 1 meter, the ground temperature always remained above freezing. This natural heat prevented the earthen floor from freezing through and becoming covered with a solid crust of ice. The use of this hidden natural resource was a key element of the Cree's survival strategy during harsh winters. The earth literally warmed its inhabitants, sheltering them from the merciless, biting cold. Ventilation in the semi-dugout was controlled just as carefully as in the snow dome. The opening in the roof could be easily adjusted by sliding a stone damper or a large piece of bark. On quiet, frosty nights, the opening was narrowed to a minimum to reliably retain precious heat. In the morning, when a large fire was lit for cooking, the opening was opened fully to quickly remove the smoke. Proper draft ensured clean air and the complete safety of all members of the camping community. Repairs to the earthen shelter were carried out regularly throughout the long winter season. If a peat block sank or cracked, it was immediately replaced with a new piece of soil. Maintaining the absolute airtightness of the walls was a critical task in extreme weather conditions. People constantly monitored the condition of the heavy vault, preventing soil from crumbling into the living area. Careful maintenance extended the reliable service life of the semi-dugout for several cold months. The architectural solutions of the Cree demonstrate the highest level of practicality and a deep understanding of nature. The semi-dugouts were not merely shelters, but complex structures with perfectly calibrated thermodynamics. Every structural element served a specific purpose, strictly designed to maximize energy conservation. These homes served as sturdy bastions in humanity's struggle against the merciless winter elements. The art of building earthen homes was passed down from generation to generation as an incredibly valuable skill. A secret passed down from generation to generation. Successful survival depended on flexible thinking. The Cree never relied on just one standard method of protection against the cold. Their greatest strength was their ability to combine various techniques depending on rapidly changing conditions. Their nomadic lifestyle was ideally suited to their ability to quickly erect snow or earthen shelters. They constantly analyzed the weather, snow conditions, and resource availability, making split-second decisions. If the group encountered a sudden snowstorm in open terrain, they would build a quick ice dome. Erecting such a temporary shelter took minimal time and did not require a long search for soft peat. People simply used the dense material that fell from the sky and lay right at their feet. The snow house became a compact lifeboat for several days until the weather finally improved. Once the blizzard ended, the group could safely continue on their way to more sheltered and resource-rich areas. Upon reaching forested areas or deep lowlands with a rich layer of peat, the strategy changed immediately. Here, the Cree would stay for a longer period, building sturdy and spacious semi-dugouts. Such base camps served as comfortable hubs for stopping in the midst of the harshest and darkest winter. Earthen shelters required more time to construct, but ensured a stable internal temperature. From these warm, fortified bases, small groups made short forays for resources. During long treks between climatic zones, the Cree used lightweight portable windbreaks. These portable screens were woven from thin twigs and set up in a semicircle around a small fire. They effectively reflected the fire's heat back toward the people and reliably blocked the piercing, icy gusts. This method allowed them to spend the night safely on the trail without expending energy on building a full-scale snow dome. In the morning, the woven screens were quickly folded up and stowed compactly on lightweight sleds. The Arctic builder's toolkit was minimal, yet versatile and reliable in any weather conditions. A sturdy bone knife cut through dense snow crust just as easily as it chopped soft peat sod. Long wooden probes were used both to check the quality of the snow and to mark out the excavation pit. The multifunctionality of the tools greatly reduced the weight of the load, making the group more agile and faster on the route. All valuable items were carefully preserved and passed down by the old masters to their successors. The speed of adaptation to new conditions was the most striking feature of this northern people's culture. They did not attempt to subdue nature by force, but rather integrated organically into its harsh rhythms and endless cycles. Frost was perceived not as an enemy, but as a physical reality with which one must know how to interact effectively. The use of ice, snow, and earth transformed the landscape's weaknesses into reliable tools for daily survival. The Cree's technologies were entirely eco-friendly and left no visible traces after the community moved on. A comprehensive approach to survival logistics made them the true and invincible masters of the subarctic. While European explorers suffered greatly from the cold in their wooden structures, the Inuit thrived amidst the ice. Wooden forts required enormous amounts of firewood and were blown through by Arctic winds through every crack. The Cree's snow domes and peat dugouts proved far more effective in conditions of extremely low sub-zero temperatures. Their icy civilization was based exclusively on intellect, not on brute mechanical force. This synthesis of knowledge allowed the Inuit people to thrive in the harsh wilderness for many centuries. Their long-standing experience demonstrates that harmony with the environment is more important than any technological superiority. An understanding of the laws of thermodynamics and the structural properties of materials saved lives where conventional logic proved powerless. Do you think modern people are capable of using the gifts of the natural world just as effectively? In the next chapter, you will learn about daily life and the intricacies of staying warm without a fire. In situations where it was impossible to build an open fire, the Cree utilized the hidden reserves of human body heat. Clothing served as the first and most important barrier, reliably protecting the body from the rapid loss of vital energy. It was sewn from dense natural materials, with a wide air gap between the layers. This basic principle of layering allowed the body to trap warm air, creating a personal microclimate. The air cushion beneath the clothing worked exactly like the heat-insulating voids in snow walls or a peat dome. The outer layer of warm clothing was always loose-fitting, allowing for complete freedom of movement during long treks. Clothing that was too tight restricted blood circulation, which inevitably led to rapid and dangerous freezing of the extremities. The loose fit allowed warm air to circulate smoothly around the torso, warming the cooling hands and feet. In the event of a strong, biting wind, the clothing was tightly laced with special leather straps at the waist and wide sleeves. This completely blocked the icy air from entering, preserving the precious accumulated internal heat. Footwear consisted of a complex, multi-component system, perfectly adapted for rapid movement across snow. A thick layer of dried grass, specially gathered at the end of the short summer, was placed inside the soft, high moccasins. This grass possessed the unique property of instantly wicking moisture away from the feet, leaving them completely and always dry. Dry and warm feet were the primary condition for physical survival at temperatures of -50 degrees. The grass liners were regularly replaced with new ones, and the old ones were carefully and thoroughly dried by a hot hearth. Diet played a fundamental and key role in maintaining the human body's internal heat generator. The diet consisted of high-calorie foods rich in proteins and fats, which ensured a long-lasting burn of internal energy. The digestion of dense fatty food in itself generates a significant amount of natural heat from within. Regular consumption of such concentrated food was simply necessary to maintain a normal body temperature. Frozen, nutritious pieces of pemmican could be eaten on the go, without having to build a fire for cooking. When sudden, strong, cold winds blew, people immediately took shelter in deep folds of the terrain or sheltered ravines. They sat with their backs firmly against the wind, wrapped securely in their cloaks, and pulled their knees close to their chests. This compact posture minimized the body's surface area exposed to the icy wind. Breath was deliberately directed into the voluminous clothing, further warming the chest with warm exhaled air. In this position, it was possible to wait out a sudden squall in complete safety without building a snow dome. To reliably protect the face from severe frostbite, special bandages and deep fur hoods were actively used. The hood had a long, tubular shape and protruded far forward, creating a completely windless zone directly in front of the face. Warm exhaled air was trapped in this tube, slightly warming the inhaled portions of the biting, icy air. This simple technical solution protected the lungs from hypothermia during deep breathing while running at a fast pace. Only the eyes remained exposed on the face, protected by narrow slits and special bone-frame goggles. Energy conservation was elevated to an absolute priority in every minute aspect of daily winter life. No movement of the arms or legs was made in vain unless it led to an improvement in the current situation. People avoided long conversations outdoors at all costs, as this led to heat loss through an open mouth. All communication during difficult treks was reduced to short, meaningful gestures and prearranged clear signals. This icy iron discipline ensured maximum focus on the single task of survival. Maintaining body heat without an external source of fire required phenomenal endurance and complete self-control. A person literally transformed their body into a perfect biochemical furnace, skillfully managing energy flows. The heat conservation techniques embedded in smart clothing and proper behavior worked flawlessly. The Cree proved that the human body possesses simply enormous potential for deep adaptation to extreme temperatures. Knowledge of simple laws of physics and physiology completely replaced high-tech modern heating systems for them. Transporting heavy equipment through deep snow was an extremely difficult logistical challenge for the entire community. Without the use of wheeled vehicles, people relied solely on their own physical strength. The main reliable means of transport were lightweight sleds, widely known as toboggans. They were made of thin, flexible planks, strongly curved at the front to glide easily over loose snowdrifts. The toboggan's flat wooden bottom did not sink into the snow, evenly distributing the weight of the load over a large area. Loading cargo onto a sliding toboggan was a true art, requiring precise practical calculation of the center of gravity. The heaviest items were placed strictly at the bottom and closer to the center to ensure stability on steep slopes. Lighter items, such as clothing and sleeping gear, were stacked on top in an even, compact layer. The entire load was tightly secured with sturdy leather straps, transforming it into a monolithic aerodynamic block. A properly and tightly packed sled would not tip over even when moving quickly over rugged terrain. The use of woven snowshoes was absolutely essential for any successful winter trek. Without them, a person would instantly sink waist-deep into the snow, completely losing the ability to move. The design of snowshoes always varied depending on the current type of snow cover in a specific forest region. For fluffy, deep forest snow, long and very wide teardrop-shaped snowshoes were used. On the hard-packed snow of wide-open spaces, shorter and narrower models were used for fast and easy running. Maintenance of this vital transport equipment was carried out at every extended stop in a sheltered camp. The bottoms of the toboggans were regularly coated with a very thin layer of water, which froze instantly in the bitter cold. The resulting perfectly smooth ice crust provided excellent glide, significantly reducing the effort required to pull the heavy sleds. The leather straps of the fastenings were thoroughly worked and carefully greased to prevent them from cracking in the extreme cold. Snowshoes were meticulously inspected for any breaks in the weave, which were immediately mended with strong, thin strands. The organization of short stops along the way was subject to strict rules of efficiency and maximum safety. Rest stops were made exclusively in wind-protected areas where a reliable shelter could be quickly set up. The sleds were arranged in a tight semicircle, forming an additional physical barrier against the icy, piercing drafts. People never sat on the bare snow, using their sleds or conifer branches to rest on. Short breaks did not exceed 10 minutes, so that the warmed-up muscles would not have time to cool down and lose their elasticity. Navigation in the thick white fog during a snowfall relied on phenomenal spatial visual memory. The Cree memorized the smallest details of the landscape: unusual rock formations, river bends, the silhouettes of old gnarled trees. In conditions of very poor visibility, they moved from one known landmark to another with mathematical precision. Losing one's bearings in a severe blizzard meant almost certain death from rapid hypothermia and complete exhaustion. Therefore, the Indians always had a clear backup plan for building shelter in case of a sudden loss of visibility. Winter routes often coincided with the migration paths of game herds, which greatly facilitated the search for food. The group could easily adjust its overall direction upon discovering fresh tracks in the white snow. However, hunting along the way was not supposed to slow down the community's overall progress toward its intended destination too much. Resources obtained during the arduous journey were distributed equally among all participants to maintain their strength. The logistics of movement were closely and inextricably intertwined with the continuous process of providing the group with food. A complex system of movement allowed the Cree to effectively control vast territories in the subarctic. They were not rigidly tied to a single location, which made them invulnerable to local, unpredictable natural disasters. Sleds and snowshoes were their high-speed vessels in this boundless and dangerous icy ocean. Constant movement always demanded iron discipline and incredible physical fitness from every member of the group. These logistics became the solid foundation of their unique culture of survival at the very limits of human capability. Survival at -50 degrees always began long before the first snow fell. The summer, and especially the fall months, were a time of intense and continuous work to prepare for the coming cold. People methodically gathered food supplies, stockpiled materials for shelters, and completely renewed their winter clothing. The survival of the entire community during the long, dark winter months depended directly on the quality of this meticulous preparation. Not a single day of the short, warm season was wasted. Everything was subject to strict planning for the future. Stocking up on provisions was the most extensive and critical task in the face of the inevitable onset of the icy season. The foundation of the high-calorie winter diet was pemmican, a unique, highly nutritious product with an exceptionally long shelf life. Wind-dried meat was ground into a fine powder and mixed with melted pure internal fat. Dried sour berries were often added to this concentrated mixture to improve the taste and enrich it with vitamins. Pemmican did not spoil at all for years and provided the maximum number of calories for its minimal weight. The production of warm winter clothing required the careful tanning of thick hides obtained in early autumn. Autumn hides had the thickest and highest quality fur, ideal for reliable thermal insulation. The long tanning process was carried out using natural ingredients to ensure the leather remained very soft in the cold. Stiff, improperly tanned leather would quickly freeze in extreme cold and irreparably crack at frequent folds. The women of the community spent long weeks carefully sewing multi-layered parkas, moccasins, and windproof mittens. The selection of suitable sites for future winter base camps was often made as early as summer during reconnaissance trips. The Cree carefully marked areas with rich deposits of soft peat and well-protected, hilly terrain. In such sheltered spots, small stockpiles of firewood were sometimes prepared in advance, stacked tightly into tall, covered piles. This saved precious energy at that critical moment when the group arrived at the site in a heavy blizzard. Advanced route planning significantly reduced risks and made all future movements more predictable. Gathering suitable firewood for winter camps was a complex process requiring excellent knowledge of wood properties. For enclosed hearths and semi-dugouts, firewood was needed that produced a great deal of heat and an absolute minimum of smoke. Dead trees that had completely dried out at the root were valued most highly, as they burned evenly and without soot. Fresh, damp wood always produced a lot of acrid smoke, which severely polluted the air in the enclosed space of the shelter. A substantial supply of dry, high-quality firewood was the main guarantee of warm nights and hot meals on the coldest days. The autumn mass migration of hunting herds served as a sure sign that the community should begin moving to their winter territories. People followed the animals relentlessly, gradually moving toward places well protected from strong northern winds. This autumn transition period was the most unpredictable and dangerous due to unstable weather and sharp temperature fluctuations. The lack of a solid, continuous ice cover on the rivers made it very difficult to move with heavy, bulky loads. The community had to reach safe forest areas before the onset of strong and prolonged Arctic storms. Teaching the younger generation complex winter survival skills was a continuous and vital process. From a very young age, children closely observed the construction of snow houses and the proper stacking of peat blocks. They constantly learned to recognize different types of snow, predict the weather, and move correctly on snowshoes. The timely transfer of knowledge was the key to ensuring the community's future survival under any extreme conditions. The invaluable experience of wise ancestors was the most important resource, one that was carefully guarded and constantly expanded. The meticulous, months-long preparation for winter clearly demonstrates the incredibly high degree of organization among the Cree people. Survival was by no means a matter of luck. It was the result of hard work and very precise planning. Facing the brutal cold of -50 degrees was not a catastrophe, but a long-awaited seasonal event. They always had the necessary tools, warm materials, and proven strategies ready for every weather scenario. In the next chapter, we will summarize and examine in detail the phenomenon of this amazing ice civilization as a whole. The story of the Cree people's survival is a true triumph of the human inquiring mind over the merciless conditions of nature. The absence of familiar, traditional building materials was by no means a death sentence for them in the icy desert. On the contrary, it became a powerful stimulus for the development of unique engineering ideas and a deep practical understanding of physics. Their unusual architecture, built from snow and peat, still amazes with its incredible functionality and energy efficiency. They created a harmonious civilization that did not attempt to aggressively alter the landscape, but instead blended seamlessly into it. The concept of continuous, constant movement was the main philosophical foundation of their interaction with the harsh surrounding world. Their conscious rejection of stationary settlements allowed them to easily avoid local resource depletion and deep soil freezing. High mobility gave them complete freedom to choose their climatic conditions within the vast accessible territories. Sleds and snowshoes provided them with unprecedented maneuverability and speed amid the endless, seemingly impassable snowdrifts. They were by no means prisoners of winter, but rather skilled and confident navigators in the ocean of cold, white silence. The unique ventilation system in the airtight ice domes unequivocally demonstrates their outstanding technical and engineering skills. Solving the complex problem of carbon monoxide buildup without losing precious heat was a true masterpiece of intuition. They masterfully harnessed natural air currents to their advantage, ensuring the entire community could sleep in complete safety. The precision of their calculations for ventilation openings is fully comparable to the designs of modern professional architects of polar stations. This fundamental knowledge has saved thousands of lives over many harsh and trying centuries. The Inuit culture clearly demonstrates that high technology is not at all necessary to create a complex survival system. Keen observation and the ability to analyze natural processes in detail proved far more important than wrought iron. Their methods were absolutely reliable, as they were based on the immutable and fundamental laws of physics and thermodynamics. Any mistake in such harsh conditions was punished immediately, so their technologies were honed to perfection over centuries. Every element of their difficult daily life was repeatedly and brutally tested by the subarctic's most severe frosts. European explorers who first encountered the Cree were amazed by their phenomenal ability to live comfortably in the ice. Where well-equipped expeditions failed and froze to death, the Inuit moved with ease and safety. They did not waste enormous effort on a futile struggle against nature. Instead, they skillfully harnessed its hidden energy. Their proven survival strategies have become the subject of intense study for modern experts in extreme environments. The experience of this ancient ice civilization continues to save lives on arduous polar expeditions around the world. The legacy of the Cree people constantly reminds us of the incredible resilience and potential of the entire human race. Their long history is vivid proof that an inquisitive mind is capable of finding a way out of even the most desperate situation. Where a merciless landscape would have delivered a death sentence, human ingenuity confidently built warm and safe homes. Snow, wind, and the frozen ground transformed from fearsome enemies into loyal allies thanks to insight and resourcefulness. This experience undoubtedly deserves the closest attention and careful preservation for future generations. The environmental sustainability of their approaches is an unparalleled and vital model for all of modern humanity. The winter camps they left behind would melt away without a trace or be overgrown with fresh green grass by the following warm spring. No trash, no destroyed landscapes, only a complete and harmonious dissolution into the natural environment. They took exactly as much as was minimally necessary for survival, without disturbing the fragile ecological balance of the subarctic. Their stunning ice civilization was the purest and most harmonious form of existence on our planet. By studying the Cree survival methods, we learn deep respect for the power and wisdom of the surrounding nature. These three technologies, movement, snow domes, and earthen shelters, became the reliable foundation of their longevity. They have irrefutably proven that even at -50 degrees, it is possible not just to survive, but to truly live. The ice civilization has left us a priceless and important lesson in resilience, ingenuity, and harmony with the world. Which of these technologies do you think could be useful in the face of modern natural disasters? We've explored the phenomenal survival methods of the Cree people in the harsh Arctic winter. Their ingenuity and ability to turn a hostile environment to their advantage are truly admirable. Share in the comments what topics and stories about the survival of other peoples you'd like to see in our next videos. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new, exciting explorations of human resilience.